My girl. Hi everyone, Mythony Girl Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new K.A.Y album, Descendants of Cain. This is a new album from Brownsville rapper K.A.Y. His fifth full-length record to date under his own name, though he is no stranger to collaborating under different nombres. The Hermit and the Recluse LP he dropped back in 2018 I would highly recommend, as it is excellent. If you do happen to be new to K.A.Y.'s music, I also recommend The Knight's Gambit, as well as Honor Killed the Samurai, though it's hard to go wrong trying any one K.A.Y. record because he is easily one of the most consistent artists in the underground. The poetic and spoken word-ish tone of his delivery, his quality over quantity approach to writing, his smoky, understated voice, cinematic production choices, the way he plays the mandolin, a-brink. No, I don't think he does that in his music, but sometimes his music is so quiet it's almost like you could hear a pin drop. Even in the context of similarly minimalist spitters such as Rock Marciano, K.A.Y. is still a creative enigma, truly idiosyncratic. This leads to a certain level of predictability in K.A.Y.'s music, as he tends not to vary too far away from his unique sound. However, there can be another level of intrigue added to his stuff if he manages to work in a concept. At the very least, though, I did go into this album expecting to hear subtle, dramatic instrumentals set to one seedy yet smart bar after another. Given the title of this thing, I wouldn't be surprised to hear a biblical angle to these tracks too. Just look at these songs: Patron Saints, Brother's Keeper, Pray, Eye of a Needle, Unto the Dust. Going into this, I actually started to wonder if this was going to be on the level of the Greek mythology tie-in on Orpheus a little while ago. Digging more deeply into Descendants of Cain, though, I found that narratively this was not quite as cohesive. With a vast majority of these tracks now, we're getting a steady dose of Christian mythos, but it often doesn't come consistently enough to tie the entire record together. Even when it's not, K.A.Y.'s always steady and skilled pen is dropping lustrous lyrical gems. The album's opening lines are among my favorite bars of his ever. All of this, of course, is delivered at a very slow pace with a lot of emphasis on every word. And of course, much of the time these lines are adding up into grim, focused topics on individual tracks, like Unto the Dust, where K.A.Y. is talking about people around him not always dying of natural causes, not just passing away. Death in his world is usually violent and tragic. There's also the track Patron Saints, which is not one of the more structured songs in my view, but still, K.A.Y. does go at great lyrical lengths to explain that the patron saints of his world, in a way, set a negative example for him because of the dark paths they led. Now, obviously, K.A.Y. is smart enough to put this in a greater context of poverty, inequality, social injustice, manifesting itself in a ruthless street life. But catching on to that does require a lot more patience than I think a lot of people are willing to give to a hip-hop record these days, or really any record, honestly, which is why listening to K.A.Y.'s music can sometimes very much feel like reading a book. Which of course I don't mean as a knock against the record, it just contributes to how unique the experience of a K.A.Y. project is. And it certainly makes listening to his stuff worth it, especially when he's dropping some of his best and most robust verses yet, like on Solitude of Enoch. Had to use your fists to change your fiscal, figuring out how to get rich became the ritual. As teens bought full magazines, if we had an issue, we all had beef, but for dinner, having gristle. And that cinematic beat switch in the second half is nice. Speaking of the production on this project, which I most definitely should make a note of, my favorite beats really end up being some of the most unlikely, like the acoustic guitar strumming, faint strings, and angelic vocals that make up the background of Old Justice. The piercing and strange sound effects, dissonant keys, and sparse percussion on P.R.A.Y. are fantastic too. The off-kilter grumbling bass loop of Unto the Dust is pretty ear-grabbing as well. I will admit, though, the jangling and tinny bells just going off in the background of Land of Nod aren't the most pleasurable sound. I don't think they add that much to the track. For the most part, though, these beats, they run in usual K.A.Y. fashion. They are quiet, They are simple, not doing too much, but they still serve as a powerful foundation for his style. There is, though, some production that runs maybe a bit too typical to my ear, or just feels far less dramatic or gripping, like the vaguely dreamy and also somewhat funky soul grooves on The Eye of a Needle, which doesn't ruin the track, but it does take the wind out of Ka.'s sails a little bit, especially when the track hits this point where there's this sudden beat switch that makes little to no sense in the overall instrumental composition of the song. It is also a bit underwhelming to hear Ka circling around familiar themes such as paranoia without too much more to add to them. The extreme amount of distrust on My Brother's Keeper, for example, is impressive, but it's not anything we haven't heard from Ka before, even with the angle of the story of Cain and Abel being worked in the background. I will say, though, this project does have one of the better endings of any Ka album so far. With the song I Love, Ka does his best to poetically tribute some of the more positive influences in his life, even though it doesn't necessarily fit very snugly in with the biblical themes of the rest of the record. It's really refreshing to hear him rapping about something that is so uplifting, inspiring, and I guess just more heartwarming. Overall, I liked this one. I thought it had a lot of highlights, and I certainly wouldn't tell a Ka fan not to listen to it, even a newbie, as I think this project still serves as a decent introduction to what exactly he does and what makes it special. But chances are, in the long run, I will find myself going back more to Honor Killed the Samurai, Orpheus, as well as Knight's Gambit. Feeling a light to decent 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Ka, forever.